That's true.
Okay, let's get started. You ready? Ian, you're joining right? We're good? Okay. So welcome everybody. I'm Corky Feb. I'm the college counselor here at Westover, and welcome everybody from wherever you are. This is my 15th year here. It seems hard to believe. I've not only raised my kids here, I know, right? But I have a daughter who's a freshman in college, so she has survived the process with a mom who's a college counselor. As we were going through the process, she was really surprised at how much I knew. You know, wow, Mom, well, this is only what I do. But hey, you know, I guess moms don't know a whole lot. Actually, she's getting better now. She's really understanding that maybe, you know, as your kids get older, you finally believe that they're human again, and you can have conversations with them and understand. So thanks for coming tonight. I have a little introduction I'm going to read you just because I think it's important. I always appreciate speaking with parents in February in hopes of providing you information on current trends. And we're going to talk about some of those current trends tonight. Also in hopes of providing a framework for all of you. I think the difficult thing for me is we can have parents from 9th grade through 12th grade. So some people are new to the school and getting adjusted, and then we have some people whose kids are sort of on the way out. So we're going to do a few things tonight to try and have you understand a bit about the process, and then also I'm here to answer questions if you have questions about things such as the new SAT, which is being launched next year, which is such an exciting thing I really like right now. And so at the end of the day, I think our philosophy in the college office is fit for the student, fit socially, fit academically, fit financially, and so that's what we're looking for. That's a process. It takes some time. Last year, I spoke a lot about education and that knowledge is power, and we talked last year about the process here at Westover. We work with sophomores for a career day. We take them to the college fair, just shopping. In the junior year, we have a college seminar. We're right now almost halfway through the college seminar. And I think it really helps girls in particular who are not wanting to talk about the process yet, at least meet once a week and toe in. Some kids are very much in charge and have done some visits and feel like they're on top of things, and other kids don't necessarily want to admit that they're going to have to leave here. But the college process and the college seminar allows them to understand tours and interviews, the application process, their role, your role, my role, things that they should consider. I've started to meet with juniors as well to start creating college lists when they're ready. Some have been to me, some I'm still waiting to see. If I don't see them soon enough, then I send them an invitation so they can come and see me and they get an invitation. We'll take the juniors to the Taft College Fair this spring, and they will be in the gate. They will have questions to ask. They'll have a list of colleges to target. They're going to be on. In the spring, they also will be doing their resume. The resume is to help them both wrap their head around what it is they're looking for in a college and maybe some things that they want in a college, but also it's a great springboard for interviews. Our girls don't brag, they're impressive to talk to. Interviews are a fantastic way for them to get to know our girls, and so at the end of the day, the resume allows them to say, wow, you were ahead of Dorcas. What is that? Right? A lot of what we do here at Westover doesn't exist in the outside world. What is the lantern? What is ahead of overs? All of those things are going to be important in terms of the college process. So the resume goes along with the applications, but it's also a part of interviews, which is a very big piece of it. In the summer, hopefully we'll do some visits and learn about some colleges along the way. They'll be emailing me information they're working on. And then we bring them back for college boot camp. This is now, I think, the 6th year we've done college boot camp. We bring them back early. We work together as a group on their college applications. So by the time that they apply to colleges, or by the time they start school, their college applications will pretty much be done. The college process has started to take over a lot more of their time, and that's a very difficult thing when they're managing leadership in athletics and academics and everything else. So if we can front-end load it and get the applications ready before they even start their senior year, then they're going to be in much better shape along the way. So that's in terms of education. Education is power.
When you use the microphone.
Use the microphone.
There's just a lot of activity going on.
We're live streaming the
Sorry, here.
presentation, so we have to be mindful that.
Is it muted? Did you tell me it was muted?
Yeah.
I feel like Vanna White. Don't quite have her physique. Okay, there we go. That's really loud. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is called the GPA game, and it's a visual exercise to try and get parents to understand a number of things that can affect college decisions. So we have 8 candidates tonight, and we will accept 3, and we will defer 3, which means we'll send them to the regular pool and see what happens, and we will deny 2. And so what I'm going to do is ask for 8 volunteers from the audience, and I'm going to give you each a card. And all of these students are students who are amazing kids. And our admissions committee is down to figuring out how we're going to get 3 from this 8. And what we're going to do is I'm going to read some details about the kids. If it's the kid, if your card says that detail, then you'll follow my direction. And we'll shuffle you around and make you see that there are a lot of things that actually impact a college's decision. I think it springboards on what Peter Van Buskirk talks about in his presentation, which if you're a sophomore parent or above, you've probably heard already. But I think it'll be really helpful to get a visual on when they have to get down to the nitty-gritty. So are there 8 people who'd be willing to come up and be brave and live stream with me? Oh, there we go. All right, you're a 4.0. You are a 4.0. You are a 3.0. You are 3.4. So you want to line up in order of your GPA. Right. You need 2 more. There we go. That's the end sport. Anybody else want to do it? Oh, there we go. No, that's the other way.
Oh, you're 4 up, yeah, I'm gonna.
There you go. Mr. 4.0. Okay. Get you moving. Kinesthetic activity, that's what we're about. Okay, so I'm the director of the Best University, and our committee has reached the end of the admissions session and has 8 amazing applicants left, and there's room to admit only 3. So the following candidates are standing in GPA order, okay? And all are excellent, but because we can only take 3, we're going to have to figure it out. Best University believes that grades are not the only factor that determines whether a student is prepared to succeed. So the committee will be making the admissions decisions based on personal qualities and other academic and extracurricular activities. So we're going to admit 3. So here we go. Are you ready? All right. If you have taken an exceptionally strong academic program, including the highest level of French offered at your school, move up 2 spaces. So what does that show you? Strong academics are important. You don't have to take all APs. You can pursue one area to its fullest. And what does it do? It moves you up 2 spaces. If you are in the Glee Club, move up 1 space. There you go. So participation in a musical group could be beneficial. If you did not write the optional college essay, move down 1 space. Mr. 4.0. So what does that tell you? What do we tell the girls? Optional is not optional. Right? Okay. These aren't our rules, by the way. We're using averages. Okay. If you are a legal resident of Idaho, move up 2 spaces.
I love the famous.
So
I thought it was North Dakota.
Oh, Bozeman, Montana would be good too. Okay, why is this helpful? Anybody?
Idaho is a state that is underrepresented in most college communities. Okay, a lot of kids who live in Idaho do not leave the state. They have a very good state system out there. And so therefore, there are some states that will give you a bump in your admissions because they want a diverse population. Okay? All right. New England, by the way, is not diverse. Just to let you know that. We're pretty much spread out all over the place. You did not make any contact with the school before or after your application was submitted. Move down one space. I don't want you guys to feel bad. It's just a game. Okay. We're no judging here. No judging. So what does that mean? What is important about interacting with colleges, right? There we go. Showing initiative, demonstrated interest, having a contact with the college. The common application, always going up again, okay. The common application is very easy. You can do one application and our girls do an amazing job and you can send it to many schools. It is so efficient in terms of time. But if you push that send button and there is no indication that you've ever had contact with the school, what are they immediately going to think? You're just fishing, you don't care. You just push that button, right? So contacting. If you can't get to a school because it's far away, maybe your family's very busy or it's very expensive, you can go online and register for mail. You can email the representative. You can meet the representative at a college fair. You can meet the representative when she comes to Westover. You can Skype an interview, right? There are a lot of ways for you to show interest. If you don't, you've missed an opportunity, okay? Okay, next one. If you are a Division I recruited athlete, move up 2 spaces. Do we need to talk about this?
No.
Okay. Coaches want players. Players want it as their way in. If you're an athlete, you're often given a bump in the application process.
You have visited and had an interview, and you have clearly stated that this college is your first choice by submitting an early decision application. Move up 2 spaces. Okay. Early decision is not for everybody. I know it seems to have stopped working.
Is it back?
Yeah.
Early decision is not for everybody. Early decision is an application plan where you say, if you take me, I will come. You are my top choice school. I've visited you. I've spent the night. I've gone to classes. I love you. Financially, my parents can afford you. If you take me, I will come. Okay? That means that the college has 100% yield on you, doesn't it? If they take you and you come, they can say they have 100% yield on the students. Also, in this difficult economic environment, more kids are applying to more schools. So if they can lock in 40% of their class, early decision, then the volatility of their spring yield is going to be decreased, isn't it? So it's a game, but it's not for everybody. And I talk a lot with the students about the fact that it has to be your I bleed for you school. Because if you get in, you have to withdraw your applications to other schools. You're done. There is one loophole, and that is if they do not give you enough financial aid or your parents feel that the package is not something they can work in, you can back out, but then you're off, right? It's over. So early decision is something that you have to think through very carefully and talk through with your students and your families, but it can give you a bump. This is my favorite. You've posted inappropriate content on Facebook or another network site. Move down 2 spaces.
I wouldn't be inclined to move down.
No?
But you tell me, well, because I'm clearly not that honest.
Okay. Do we need to talk about this? We talk about it with girls all the time. Colleges sometimes will go on to Facebook to see what you're up against or what you're doing. If it's something inappropriate, You know, they have enough trouble, you know, keeping track of the adolescents who sometimes behave on their campuses, so they don't really want someone who's showing to the world that they are perhaps doing things inappropriate things in their free time. So don't do it.
Question about that?
Yep.
Do they also look at more than inappropriate? Do they look at appropriate or interesting?
They can, and again, not all colleges have the time. Big state schools have no time to do that sort of thing. But I think with especially a lot of the upheaval in schools today, with people who perhaps have psychological problems, sometimes they'll be phishing on Facebook just to make sure that you're not an at-risk kid. Unfortunately, especially in the public school sector, even if counselors know that the kid is a risk, they can't report it because of privacy acts. So, anything that colleges can get that can make sure that their campus is safe, they'll do it if they have an inkling towards it. Next one, if your intended major is psychology, move down one space. Why is that? That's a toughie. It's a very common major. And biology actually is also very common, even if you're a girl. Sometimes if you pick a common major, they're only going to admit enough for that major, and so it's a little more competitive. Decided, and I often tell kids, go ahead and do that, because that means the world is open to you, as long as you're decidedly undecided. If they ask you at the Taft College Fair, what's your major, and you say, I don't know. That doesn't go very well, but if you say, I don't know, I really love science and I really love art, and so I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with that, right? Colleges say, we want her, right? So you can be undecided, but you have to be undecided and proud of all the interests you have, because they like that energy, right? They like that enthusiasm for things that they want to do. Okay, if when writing your college essay you forgot to change the name of the college you were applying to, move down one space. Need I say anything else? Okay. No judging here. No judging here. Oh, this is another one. If you plagiarized a world history paper in 11th grade, move down one space.
It was ninth grade.
Ninth grade. Okay. If you have contributed...
How do they know that?
Because you're asked on the application if you've had any academic discipline, and you have to disclose. If you have contributed significant hours to community service, especially focusing on service that aligns with your gift or talents, and perhaps your intended field of study, move up one space. All right. Is that self-explanatory too, right? Giving to others a gift that you have, sharing that gift with others over a long period of time. You're a giver. Colleges want givers. Colleges want kids who are going to come and do amazing things in their community. And let's be honest, right? Every college community is an artificially created community, right? They're trying to create quintessentially the best community possible. They want kids who are going to be givers.
Can I just ask a question, and if you're going to address it later, since we're still talking. I had a discussion with Erin. She was really concerned about doing community service in the spring instead of playing lacrosse, which she has played in the past JV. And I said what you just said about finding something targeted. So what would your advice be in terms of the consistency, playing on a team for 3 or 4 years versus something like community service as you get to junior, senior year that is in alignment with your talents?
I think it can go either way, because we have students who need that athletic outlet to be successful academically, right? We have kids who need to run around on the field to be able to focus at night. And so I think it depends on the individual student and how it's going to make her world happen and make her world happen well. If lacrosse has not been her favorite thing and she's been playing it because it's a sport and she's, it's where she started, but it doesn't light her fire, then I would try community service only because that might light her fire. And she might connect with someone that leads to a summer internship or something. But I also think that we have kids who are athletic and need that outlet, and if we put them in community service, they're not going to be able to sit down at night and do their work. So for me as a student, my sports actually centered my world. They made me more disciplined, I had to be well organized to get everything done. And so at the end of the day, you have to think of the individual student. So I don't think there's a right and a wrong answer for that. Yep. Okay. If you apply to a school that tracks demonstrated interest but did not show interest, move down one space. Oh no.
I moved already.
But you, this is a different one.
Yeah, but I moved, I'm not really a 4.0 just because the sign says it.
Okay. You're not there yet?
I moved on the wrong question.
Okay. All right. All right. We'll just roll with it. We'll just keep going. All right. This is my ultimate favorite because I know it doesn't happen at Westover, but we got to put it out there. If your mother called the college admission office to check on your file, move down one space. So sorry. And honestly, you may have had no control over your mom. I get that. Okay. If you are from the Northeast and you apply to schools in the Midwest, move up one space. Why is that? They want kids from the East Coast. A lot of kids from the East Coast stay in the East Coast. As a matter of fact, I was just out at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland 2 weekends ago for a counselor fly-in, and they're actually making the deal sweeter by throwing some pretty good money at our scholars. 20 grand a year over 4 years isn't hard to take, okay? They're trying to get kids to Cleveland, and that's one of the ways they're working on it. The other thing about schools in the Midwest is a lot of them are almost a third less in tuition. The Midwest is cheaper. So if money is a factor in making your college decision, it's really not a bad idea to consider schools in the Midwest. Even with the airline flights, and now at Bradley, if you're a Connecticut resident, a lot of these flights are an up and a down to Cleveland. It's 2 and something hours, I think. So to consider that. That might be something that you might want to consider. If you play French horn in the city orchestra, move up one space. All right, for the French horn. Why is that self-explanatory, right? You have a gift, they have an orchestra, they need people to fill their orchestra, right? If you're playing in a city orchestra, that means you're pretty darn good, and they need you. French horn is not an instrument that is commonly played. I think flute is more common, violin is more common, oboe, not so common, right? A little late to start picking up the oboe, senior parents, but we'll work on that. If you've not participated in any extracurricular activities until your junior year, when you join 4 clubs, move down 2 spaces. No judging here. Oh, you gotta go 2.
Oh, 2.
You're going 2. I know. So, of course, what does that show? Again, Westover girls are very active. They do a lot of things. But if you're only joining in your junior year because you want to make your college list look a little more sexy, it's a little late, right? So the short of it is get involved, right? Do some things that you really love to do. You are the first person in your family to attend college. Move up 1 space. Why is that? It's kind of like being from Idaho, isn't it? It's a demographic. There are fewer and fewer kids who are first gen. And there are a lot of scholarships out there for first gen kids and federal programs. And so being first gen is huge these days. If you are first gen, that gives you a bump up in your admissions process, absolutely. If you attended an enriching summer program between your sophomore and senior years, move up 1 space. Okay, so maybe you have a daughter who's in WISE and maybe she's thinking about engineering. Maybe she does a 1-week program up at UConn, an exploration program. Or maybe she does one at Carnegie Mellon because they have an amazing engineering program. Maybe she shoots out to Case Western. Maybe she goes to UPenn. Maybe she goes to WPI, right? There are a lot of programs out there that are 1 week. A lot of them are connected with a college process where they teach you a little bit about going to college at the same time. We've had students do business programs up at Bentley. We've had kids do art programs down in New York at Pratt or RISD in Rhode Island. So if you have a daughter who has a passion and wants to explore that passion, going to a summer program shows that she's gone the distance, right? She stepped up, and that may be a very important thing.
Does it have to be a college summer program, or can it be another high school summer program?
It could be another high school summer program. I think one of the reasons why we send our kids to art programs if they think they want to do art in college is that there's a difference between going to a liberal arts college and studying art and studying a lot of things and going to an art school and doing just art. And sometimes they feel that they need their brain fed in different ways, and an art school where it's just art may be not what they're looking for. So those immersion programs sometimes can be very helpful. We've also had kids travel to France and do work with Arab Spring, and there's a program over there that does community service but also is French immersion. So we have kids who are very interested in languages who've done that. And we are here to help. I can tell kids programs that our kids have done in the past, help them to match with programs. I always tell kids you don't have to pay $3,000 to go build a hospital in Costa Rica, right? There are a lot of things out there that you can do that aren't terribly expensive and also can help move you forward. Okay, your essay was too polished and the admission staff suspects that your mother wrote it. Move down one space. Oh no. Okay, no judging here. Okay, again, why do we put this in here? Because the essays have to be in the kids' voice. I will help them with their college essays. I've taught English for almost 20 years. Their English teachers will help them with their essays, but at the end of the day, if you write their voice out of their essays, it's not going to be their voice. So the trick is to help them shape their essay and make it reveal things about themselves. But if it's perfect, it's not going to be coming from an adolescent, right? It's got to be theirs. It's got to be in their voice. So it can hurt a kid if the essay is too perfect. Sometimes I'll look at some of the words that are used in essays and I'll ask the kids, what does it mean? And if they can't tell me what the word means, then I tell them they need to take the essay and make it theirs, right? Because if you can't tell me a word that you used, then you probably did not put that word in there, right? Okay. If you earned your Girl Scout Gold Award, move up one space, all right? This is something that a number of our girls have done. They've stayed with Girl Scouts through Westover, which is very hard to do in their busy lives, but the Gold Award takes a significant amount of effort. They write a paper, they do a project. It's a big deal. And so it shows the colleges a significant commitment. We had a student this year who actually designed and built wooden boxes for collection of food staples for food banks, and then created a system to make that work. And that's what she did for her Gold Award, serving the community. So impressive, right? Something very impressive. If you are named an all-star athlete, move up one space. Okay, now he's not a Division I athlete, right? But he is an all-star athlete, and there are a lot of Division III schools that want him, right? He's going to help them win championships. He's going to be there. And guess what? What's his GPA? Okay, so he's pretty smart too. Right? I get an athlete and probably a scholar, right? Unless he ends up on the party circuit, right? We're going to keep him off the party circuit.
I didn't plagiarize.
Yeah, oh, yeah. He's a little tricky. I think we're going to have to keep an eye on him, right? If you are a legacy, move up one space. Okay. In a lot of schools, if you have a parent or a grandparent that attended the school, or a sibling, they are loyal to you. At the University of Virginia, if you're an out-of-state student but your parents attended, you're considered at an in-state level. Okay, it's easier to get in. They're loyal to their alumni. Okay, so not in all schools, but many schools, if you've had a parent, grandparent, or sibling attend, that does give you a little bit of bump in the college process. You work as a cashier part-time at Stop and Shop. Move up one space. Boy, he's a busy man up there. Okay, again.
That's why my mom wrote polish my essay.
Oh, okay, because you were busy. You were busy. Okay, all right. I see that now. It's coming together. You see, you're still in the top 3 up there. Yeah. Okay. Colleges do also look at kids who are responsible. Having a part-time job while juggling your Westover career, right? Not easy to do. Or a job in the summertime, earning a wage, shows that if you keep the job, hopefully you're on time, you're dressed appropriately, you behave appropriately, you're responsible enough to carry a job. That speaks to colleges, right, about who you are as a person. I always tell the girls in the summer between their Junior and senior year, aspiring to get a tan is probably very bad on any number of levels these days, unless you're getting it sprayed on. So, figure out what you want to do with your summer. Think about some things, and I can certainly help them, talk with them about things that they can do, right? Keep them safe and showing themselves off. If you decided to protect your GPA by not taking AP classes offered at your school, move down one space. Oh my goodness, we're moving you everywhere. Okay, what does that mean? Does it mean that your daughter should take all APs and she's not going to get into college if she doesn't take APs?
Take the most challenging curriculum possible.
Exactly. She should take the most challenging curriculum that she can handle. She shouldn't play it safe to get the higher GPA. Because guess what? Her test scores are going to be pretty darn high. And her GPA is going to match it, but she's not going to be in competitive courses. Okay? So again, they're going to look at the correlation between the test scores, between the GPA, between the teacher's recommendations. And that's what we have amazing advisors for here. They know our girls well. They counsel them on classes to take. The kids meet with me in their junior and senior year to talk about classes as well, to make sure that we feel together that she's taking a competitive class load that she can manage and be successful in her other activities. And that's why a small school is beautiful, right? Because I can see every single sophomore, I can see every single junior, I can see every single senior, look at their 3-year plan, 2-year plan, 1-year plan, and figure out what's going to be best both for how they're presenting themselves, but also how they're successful in their lives here, right? Okay. If you earned a D in an academic course at the end of your junior year, move down one space. Do I need to talk about that one? Okay. If you're a Westover student applying to a school that is 70% female, move down one space. If you're a Westover student, a girl, applying to a school that is 70% female, why do you move down one space?
They don't need more, two females.
Right.
Population.
Right, you got the wrong chromosomes, right? If most colleges are striving to have a 50-50 split male-female, right now the average is 60-40 female to male. So in a lot of schools we are at a disadvantage if you're a girl because there aren't enough boys coming down the pike, right? That's a demographic trend. So at some schools, a final decision can be made simply because of your gender, which isn't fair, but that's what happens. And I talk with the girls a lot about that, because it's important for them to know that it could come down to gender, whether they get an admit or a defer, right? And that's the way the system works. Your college offers evaluative interviews, and you have an interview, and you are prepared with a resume and relevant questions to ask. Move up one space. All right, that's my prepared girl. Okay? Again, our students are bright. They're interesting to talk to. They're articulate. They talk with adults every day. They're impressive to meet. They don't know that because they're at Westover, but if you put them in a general population, holy cow, okay? If they have an opportunity to have an interview in the college process, they need to take it. It's one more chance they have for the colleges to get to know them as individuals, right? To write up an extra piece that goes into that file when the admission committee reads it. Now, what if you can't get to the school? Maybe it's far away. You can Skype. You can have an alumni interview. They can come here, right? My only rule is you can't go to their house. Why? Creepy, 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 right? And I tell the girls that. Where's that little voice that says, run away now, right? Meet them at a coffee shop, meet them at the library, meet them at Westover, in a public place, please, right? We trust here. We need not to trust so much, okay? Interviews are amazing things, and they're often a way for a kid to have a voice in an application, an extra voice. If they have the opportunity, take it. It will help them. We also spend a lot of time in the college seminars practicing. You know, any of you, when you got married, if you got married, did the minister ever tell you if you're about to faint at the altar or cry uncontrollably in my case, right? What you should do is look right between the people's eyes because they don't know that you're not looking in their eyes and you can relax. So I tell the girls that. If you're a little unusual, you can't tell I'm looking between your eyes, but I really am. And when they're having an interview, that ability to pretend that they have eye contact allows them to relax. Right? They do need to look away. I told them that too, right? Otherwise it gets a little bit like the stink eye, you know? So you do have to alter your look. But the idea is, again, right, eye contact, having conversations, all very important. If you wrote a letter to the college admission officer and explained the extenuating circumstances surrounding the D in the spring of your junior year, move up one space. So we had the got the D, didn't do anything. Now we have the got the D, explained the D. Do you understand that? So if you have a story to tell, you have to tell it, or they're going to fill in the blank with whatever they want. Right?
You do that in the application.
Mm-hmm. There's an additional information section in the application, which by the way is not optional, right? At least here. You can write anything you want in there about anything at all. If you have a situation you need to explain, that's the place to do it. If you are in WISE and you want to talk about your EDP or IEP, that's the place to do it. If you're in IIG and you want to talk about your involvement in IIG, that's the place to do it. Right? If you've done some community service and it's really lit your fire, that's the place to do it. Right? So it's not optional. It's 650 words where you can add more about yourself in the application. Right? So again, explaining that, really important. And we work with kids, right? We talk about, we don't want to just say I got a D because I hate my teacher. Right? That doesn't really show well. But, you know, I got to a level of math that was really difficult for me. I toughed it out. I didn't drop the class. This is what I've learned from it, right? That speaks volumes about the kid, right? Own it and explain it. Very important. Okay. If the topic of your college essay was why I am like my dog, loyal, honest, and happy, move down one space. Why are we moving? Perhaps comparing yourself to your dog is not necessarily the best way to write a college essay. Okay? And that is just a segue into the fact that we work really hard here with the kids on their college essays. It starts in the summer of their senior year. I tell parents all the time, you can put a time frame on when you want that essay to be written, but until they have something they're really passionate about, it's going to be garbage. They will email me essays over the summer from wherever they are to wherever I am. Sometimes it is simply a line in that essay that turns me on, and I'll say, this is it. This is where the magic happens. Take that line and write it. And all of a sudden it comes out. Right? And don't worry about how long it is. Write 5 pages. We can chop it, but you got to get it down, and then we can work with it. Because in the essence, the essay has to speak about and reveal about information about you, right? You could talk about brushing your teeth as long as it revealed information about you. That's a pretty boring topic, but maybe kids here are pretty creative, they can make it work. I couldn't. But it has to be an essay that reveals information about you. A well-written essay will not hurt you. It will not help you. A well-written essay that reveals information about you will help you in the process. Okay. If your intended major is Greek and your file supports your interest, move up 1 space. Oh, there's a Greek one. Okay, so we talked about psychology and why that is a very common major. Greek, on the other hand, classics, not so much. But your application, your resume, your class schedule has got to list and show that you have a long-standing interest in Greek, right? Otherwise, what are you doing? You're gaming the system, and it's pretty transparent, isn't it? So you don't want to pick a major that's uncommon just to see if you can get into a school. If you don't have the information behind you showing that you have that interest, colleges are going to know that. That's not going to help you. In this case, she's interested in Greek, and she has a history of a connection with it. She's taken Latin, she studied the classics, she's traveled abroad, maybe at a dig, looking at the ancients. Okay. If you need money to attend college and you are applying to a need-aware school, move down 1 space. Okay, what does this mean? There are colleges that say that they are need-blind. They will admit students regardless of how much money they need. And so it does not affect the admissions decision. There are a number of schools these days that are called need aware. If they know you need a lot of money, they may defer you. They may put you on the wait list because they can't afford you. It's numbers, it's a business, can't control it. It's what happens. So I tell the kids all the time, don't be upset if you've been waitlisted by a school because you have high need. That may happen, right? But we're going to have a lot of schools on there that are going to appreciate you and value you for who you are and give you the money you need, right? That's the job of balancing a college list. You're a Westover student who has participated in WISE and is intending to major in a STEM field. Move up one space. Okay. Women in STEM are underrepresented everywhere, right? So if you are a student who wants to go into engineering, computer science, hardcore sciences, you have a bump up in the college process. If you've been in our WISE program, that shows a long-standing commitment, doesn't it, to your interest in STEM. That will help you in the process. If you write an essay that truly reflects your voice, and the college loves it because the staff learned about you from it, move up one space. Oh, move them up again. If you are a Westover student applying to a school that is 30% female and 70% male, move up one space.
That's me.
Oh, you can't move up. We got you up there. You are an active leader in your church youth group. Move up one space. Who's our active leader in church youth group? You got one? Did we lose her? No, that could have been me. It was a long day. Okay. Last one. If your last name is Gates, and the name on the college library is Gates, and Bill is your dad, move all the way to the front of the line and stay there.
Guess who?
So who are we admitting here? 2.6, 4.0, 3.4. We're going to waitlist 3.0, 3.2, and 2.8. And our little friends, 3.8 and 3.6, we're not taking. What does this show us? In a lot of ways, it can be, right? I mean, part of the reason why we have the college seminar, part of the reason why we have such a good advising system here is a lot of the pitfalls that we've seen tonight we're hoping to avoid because your kids are here. And we're helping them through the process. So she does change the name in the essays. And we make sure that she's not going to plagiarize, right? Because we hammer that into them. Even if they do, it's a risk, it happens, but we move on. We talk a lot about integrity here. We teach them how to write well, so their essays are quite good and quite strong. They are actively involved in activities all over Westover, right? Athletics, the arts, music, clubs and organizations. They're passionate about what they do. And that's why I think our girls would be toward the top of the line, regardless of their GPAs, right? This is a pretty big range here, but you can see that along the way, it's not all fair, but it's also along the way, what they do in terms of paving the way can help them.
I think I'm going to change my last name to Gates.
Gates? Yeah. You'd have to marry Melinda, and you'd be all set. So thank you, everyone. I have a little gift for everyone who participated. Here we go. These are for you guys. To say thank you for being up on all lives. Thank you. Thank you for standing so long. You guys worked all day. You probably haven't even had dinner. You're standing up in front of us. Thank you. I don't know. Okay, so that's the first half of our discussion tonight, and I hope that it was helpful in terms of seeing that there are a lot of factors in the application process, and that our daughters do have a lot of control over the outcome. and that we hope to help them navigate and hope to help them pave their way in very successfully as we go. But also there's some things we can't control, and as long as we keep that in mind moving forward, celebrating their strengths, then I think at the end they'll be very successful in the college process. There are a couple things I did want to talk about tonight, one of which is the changing of the SAT. I don't know if you all have read anything about the SAT. It's been on in the New York Times, and people are getting pretty ramped up about it. I started researching this last spring when it was announced that the SAT was going to be changing. I've been to a number of workshops. In all honesty, if you boil it down, the SAT is losing market share to the ACT, two tests that are accepted equally at colleges. The SAT, if you're new to the game, has a critical reading section, a math section, and a writing section. There is a deduction of points for incorrect answers, and they do twist questions and use answers to distract students. So it's a lot of logic, critical thinking. The ACT test, which was for a long time the Midwestern test, has 4 sections: an English grammar section, a math section, which is straightforward, just problem-solving math, a science reasoning section where you interpret data and graphs, and a reading section where you read real documents. And then there was an essay as well. The reason why I'm not too worried about this change in the SAT is because we are an ACT winning school. Our curriculum matches the ACT in terms of, as a matter of fact, the grammar on the ACT is a walk in the park compared to what they see every day in English class. They are enough questions, answering enough questions. The beauty is there's no deduction for incorrect answers. So what do you do when you have 10 questions left and 3 minutes remaining? Pick a row and bubble down. Whatever looks sexy, I tell them, right? Because odds are, a couple are right. Right? So you never leave anything blank. Our juniors are heading into the ACT this weekend. But as the SAT is changing, it is becoming more like the ACT. And the reason is because the ACT is often used by school systems to show benchmarks. Because it's broken down into grammar, English grammar, math, science, and reading, you can actually assess the success of your teachers through the scores that kids are getting. Well, the SAT is losing market share, so they are actually reworking the test to make it more like the ACT. This means, for me, it's a little bit of a slippery slope because we have no correlation charts. We don't know how colleges are going to interpret these scores because they don't even know what they mean. And so my strategy is going to be to lean heavily into the ACT until the SAT gets its act together. I am not at all nervous about it because our kids tend to do better on the ACT anyway. If we have a student who does very well on practice tests on the SAT, she feels comfortable with the SAT, and she is currently a sophomore, the old SAT goes through January of next year. So we will have her take a December SAT for practice and the January old SAT, hopefully to net a good score. And then after that, well, SAT is going through its shenanigans and figuring out what it means and how they're going to score it. We're going to lean into the ACT, and I think we're going to be just fine. So the reason why I wanted to address it is that I know that if you've been reading about it, it really sounds like this whole new exciting thing is coming down the pike, but I really want them to get their house in order. And I don't think we're going to lean into it until they do. Everything that I see, it's a test that's going to be at a huge disadvantage for boys because of your frontal lobe development. Anybody there? Our men in the room? About 26, did it kick in? That's about right. Yeah, okay. So I think that the test itself is going to really be difficult for boys because of the way they're asking questions and the reasoning they're asking for. Studies show that men's frontal lobe develop at a later date, and that's just the way it is. So does anybody have any questions about the change in the SAT? Sure.
The sophomores this year are taking the SAT. Is that right?
The sophomores this year are going to take a practice ACT in the spring, just to see what it's about. They're going to take the PSAT in the fall, which is the new version. And then they have the option, if in fact they feel that they're SAT leaning, to take the old one before it goes away.
So they won't have had a chance to take the old PSAT.
We can give that to them. I mean, we can give them a practice if they want one. Yeah. I mean, I can give them practice books, they can sit for the 2.5 hours and take it to see if they prefer. And they can certainly use a test prep book to see if they lean toward it. But because probably, this year's class is a little different, I think probably 20% is SAT leaning, but in general, it's usually 10% or less of our class is SAT leaning. So we tend to, because of our curriculum and the matching, we tend to be an ACT school, hands down. Also because there's no penalty for guessing, because the sections are, so on the SAT you could have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes back and forth. The ACT is 45 minutes of the grammar section, 45 minutes of the math, so the back and forth that happens sometimes really creates static in the kids' heads.
Okay, and is the first opportunity that PSAT is offering the new PSAT in the fall, or?
Yes.
That's the first?
Right, and part of the difficulty with that is there aren't any practice materials because they haven't built the test yet. Yeah. It's, well, like I said, we've always liked the ACT better, and this is just another reason for us to hang in there. I honestly think that, I mean, what do I know, but I think they're going to lose a lot of market share before they gain it back. I think it's a risk they're taking. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On the subject of standardized tests, what's the role of the subject tests?
Okay, so we have the SAT and the ACT tests, and those are often what all that colleges require. Some require, especially schools that are more competitive, if you send your SAT, they will require subject tests. Those are hour-long tests in specific subjects to show your ability in specific areas. So some schools will do SAT 1 and SAT 2 or ACT, another reason why we like the ACT. There are some schools who have, however, whether you send your SAT 1 or your ACT will require SAT 2s, which are the subject tests. And we try and work pretty hard to counsel our kids when to take them, when it's appropriate. So if you're a freshman or sophomore in your higher level of math, it's probably better to take it early before you get farther away from the information. If you're in an AP class, we tend to try and have you take it at the end of your AP cycle. Often the May SAT 2s are very good for that because they've just powered up for the exam, so it's all in there, and so we want to use what we've got. If your child is not in an advanced class, often we will have her take a math SAT 2 and either English or, depending upon what her other interests are, we'll pick one of the other sections. There's U.S. history, there are languages, there are sciences, there's math, there's English, so there's a wide range of SAT 2s. My goal in terms of testing, but the truth be told is we take them all, we put them in a file, we use what we need, and guess what? There are a lot of schools out there that are something called test optional, which means they value your daughter's application without having to see test scores. So if your daughter doesn't feel that her test scores reveal her ability or reflect her ability, she can go out test optional and her test scores aren't even considered. And these are very, very good schools that have done this for a very long time. I also value them because they're schools that read the whole file. They're the schools that want to see the fit for the kid. They're the schools that really want to see match. Now, I'd be kidding myself and kidding you if I didn't say there are schools that are only GPA and test driven. University of Michigan, right? If you have that many applications, you pop the numbers into a computer and it makes the decisions for you. That's life, right? That's going to happen at some of these big schools. If you had 36,000 applications, there was no one reading your essay, right? Guaranteed. But again, we know that going in, right? We talk to the kids about that. One of the things I talk a lot, just as a side note, with the kids, when I ask them about size of community and they say, I have no idea, one of the things I always ask them is, how do you learn best, right? Do you learn best in a small environment where there's collaboration, where you can talk with your professors, where there's a dialogue? Would you learn okay in a lecture hall of 1,000 of your friends, right? Because size of school often can be influenced, or your decision in terms of size, on how you learn best, right? Do you want to be at a school with 500 friends, 1,000 friends, 2,000 friends, 35,000 friends, right? How does that feel to you? And I think that helps kids think a little bit about size of community as we go. A couple other things, senior parents, they're out there. It's important to remember that this is the time when they're filling out the FAFSA, which is the federal aid application. There are two types of applications for financial aid. One is called the CSS profile, and that's for private colleges. It's filed in November. You don't have to obviously have your taxes done, but it estimates a lot for you. And then there's the federal form, which all colleges require, which is due after January 1st of the senior year. And then you would fill it out every year that your daughter's in college to reapply, okay? And I can help you all with that. That's just we're gonna go 30,000 feet on that one.
I'm sorry, do me a favor, just repeat that, because when you said senior, I kind of zoned out for a second.
Okay, so in the fall of the senior year, if your daughter's applying to private universities, they may require something called the CSS profile. It's a financial aid application for private colleges. If you're applying for financial aid and you're applying to schools that don't, any school in the country, even Canadian schools actually, because you can get student loans for Canadian schools through something called the FAFSA. That's the free application for student aid, and that's the federal form. It's online at the federal government website, and that is to be filled out every year. So the other thing I want to talk a little bit about tonight as we move forward is I've been thinking a lot, as I had a daughter who was a senior last year, but also about our girls here, and I often think to myself as a parent, what do I want my kid to know before I launch her? You know, even if you're a boarding school parent and you sent her here, we're looking out for her, aren't we? But you're going to send her off to college, and she's going to be on her own. And what are some things that you hope she learns before she gets there? Things like how to sew on a button, did that, right? How to address an envelope. When was the last time your daughter addressed an envelope? Right? We worked on that this summer, where the stamp goes. Right? You ever thought about that? When was the last time your daughter put a card in the mail? Maybe a thank you note, right? But in general, how to just simple things. How to do your own laundry. My kids have been doing that for years. Or they just have dirty clothes, right? It's either or, you figure it out. But there are a lot of things also that we've been thinking about. Money management. Balancing a checkbook. Using credit cards. As soon as your daughter goes to college, she'll start getting credit cards in the mail. Right? And she can sign up for them. She's over 18, you know, talking about money management and what that means. Personal safety. This is a really hot topic for me. And you've watched in the media lately, whether it happened at UVA or it didn't, what happened at Stanford, if you think down at Duke. If you look at all the things that have been going on college campuses, we're very trusting, aren't we? How are we going to keep ourselves safe? Right? I'm actually going to take a small group of seniors to a program called the Red Zone. The title is The Red Zone, What You Need to Know About Sexual Assault on College Campuses. And then I'm hoping that I'm going to bring them back to Westover and we're going to deputize them and have them talk to students, because I think honestly, coming from their peers, it makes a bigger difference, right? You know, walking alone on campus. Being sure that you're in control of your own self, which means that you're not so intoxicated, inebriated that you cannot be in charge of your own self, right? That's really important these days, right? Most schools have things like Safe Ride. If you're studying late at a lab and you want to ride home, they will pick you up, or it's snowing, right? They'll pick you up at the door, they'll drive you back to your dorm, right? That's when I was at Case Western last 2 weekends ago, and I asked one of our students, Noella, you know, how's it going for you here? Right? Cleveland's a city. It's a pretty hardcore city, right? She says she just basically calls Safe Ride when she's done working on her experiments, and they tell her wait inside, they pull up, she gets in, they take her home. And she's also said that, you know, upon occasion, if she was taking care of a friend who maybe had gone to a party and had a little too much party, the Safe Ride would come and pick you up and take you home as well. So there are a lot of things our girls need to know about being safe on college campuses, looking out for themselves. I think that's a really important thing. I think it's important to empower them so that they are safe. We did have some, last year, seniors come back and talk to a class about their experiences at college so far. And it was really interesting for me to hear what they learned about the social life. One girl talked about a story where she went to a party with a friend, and she gave her friend her ID because she didn't have a pocket, and I guess her cash, and then the friend left, and she was stuck at the party with no way to get home and no money, right? And she told that to our girls, and our girls said, oh, that's kind of crazy. So the long and the short of it is, the reason why I'm telling you this story is, it might be good to have conversations with your kids. What if this happens? What would you do? This whole summer I was thinking with my daughter about things that could be happening, not because I wanted to scare her, but hey, you're at a party and your buddy, your wing person, right? Because the rule in my house is always go with a wing person and never leave your wing person, right? There are two of you, you hang out together. Well, maybe Mr. Heidi McCopton arrives and your wing person flies, right? Could happen, just saying. What are you gonna do, right? So I guess part of what I'm saying is that it might be good as parents. I made a list because I'm a list maker, then I lose the list, by the way. That's where I am in my world these days. But I make the list, right? And I've been thinking a lot about what do I want to talk with our girls here and my girls at home before they go to college, things that I want them to know, scenarios that they might run into, and how they can act in those scenarios. I think it's always good to think through what you could do before something happens, because when it's happening, you're not always capable of thinking in the moment, right? Sometimes you're reacting and not necessarily thinking clearly. Self-advocacy is another thing I talk a lot about with the girls. We had a student who came back and said, Corky, I went to my advisor and I found out that in the next term of my freshman year, I had to take 4 history classes. Okay, so sad. All right. Why is that so bad? Well, it's a lot of reading and writing. I really want to take some science and math. And I said, well, what are you going to do? She said, well, I can go to my professors and have them sign the card, and I can get them to sign me into the class. And I said, well, okay. So what did our Westover School girl did? She went and got the card, went to the professor, said, can you take one more kid? Comes back, she's taken 2 science and 2 history. Okay? Because she advocated for herself. Even in a big college and university, you need to be able to have the wherewithal to think, okay, here's the problem, what are the solutions, how can I act upon it, how can I move forward, right? Because we're all going to run into hurdles. It's not all going to be rainbows and unicorns, right? Although we like to think it is sometimes. Another thing that our seniors have talked a lot about recently is how hard it was to make good friends, and we talked about this at the beginning. They make such amazing friends here. They go to college and they expect that that's just going to happen. And it doesn't always happen right away. And I have to remind them, you all hated each other your freshman year, right? You had to work through some stuff before you became besties. So you're going to go to college, and it's not always going to be that right off the bat. Think about that, right? How can you make a few friends? How can you create a network? How can you create a network in several areas so that you're not just hanging with the same kids all the time, right? How can you branch out and make that community? The other thing I think a lot about, and this pertains more to our juniors and seniors, is a lot of you don't want to leave. And they don't want to talk about it because it's kind of scary, right? This is a fun place to be. Little do they know, right? Some don't always appreciate it, and yeah, it's not always rainbows and unicorns, but it's a great place. You can leave with dignity, or you can leave burning every bridge you've got, right? How to leave and keep your friendship strong, right? Because some kids don't want to say goodbye, so if you piss everybody off, you don't have to. It's not really the most graceful way to leave, right? So, yeah, you're leaving, right? Why do you think we have the Germans when they come back from spring break? Because the seniors are saying goodbye, right? The Germans are saying, you're leaving us soon, right? There are a lot of traditions we have at the ring ceremony. When the juniors get the rings, who gives them the rings? The seniors. They're passing down the leadership, right? There are a lot of things we do here to remind the seniors that you can't stay here forever, right? But still, sometimes it's important to think about how you can leave with grace. Those are some things that I've been thinking about recently. If there are other things you want to talk about tonight or questions you have about the college process, I've sort of covered a lot. Maybe you haven't had dinner yet. Are there any questions in terms of what we've talked about tonight?
I have
Just one
Sure.
quick question about the girls who are taking the ACT on Saturday weekend.
on Saturday.
Have they, I'm assuming they've been counseled about guessing if you know, if you get to the end and so on and so forth. Do you spend a lot of time on test-taking strategies with them on both the SAT and the ACT?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Can you repeat the question?
Do we, the kids are taking the ACT this weekend. The question is, do we spend a lot of time helping them learn strategies for the testing? And the answer is yes. In the college seminars, we talk about it. I'm a visual learner, so in each class I give them a typed out outline of what we're going to talk about, so that if they're visual and not audio, they've got it in front of them and they can make notes on it. We talk about the SAT versus the ACT. The difference is in the test. We talk about strategies for taking the test. For example, on the SAT, should I guess, shouldn't I guess? How many can you get it down to, probability-wise? The SAT 2, the section gets harder as you go, but there's no more points for the easier question, for the harder questions. So you might as well, you know, answer as many as possible and skip the ones if they're too hard and you have no idea. And then we review it in 2 different college seminars, and then before each test I send them an email reminding them. Also things like bring your ticket and your ID and dress in layers and bring a snack, and it's a marathon, right? So if you're running a marathon, you don't just skip over the finish line, you push it through. I did feel very old this year when I said in between the sections do some Jane Fonda, and they had no idea who she was. Okay, I need some new aerobic woman. Don't have her. Maybe Zumba. Maybe that would be good. They're all into the Zumba. So the answer is yes, and we do it all the time. The reason why they take an ACT now and an SAT in January is just for practice. I don't expect any extraordinary scores. It would be beautiful if we got one, but they need to see the differences in the test. They need to sit for 4 hours. I don't know about you, but sitting 4 hours is really hard for me, right? So they need to have that experience before it really counts. So we take them, we figure out what we like. We probably will decide which one we prefer. If we want to do some preparation, then we're going to lean into one or the other. I think it's really difficult to divide your focus and prepare for 2. They will take, again, the ACT in April. They can take it in June. They can take it in September. They can take it in October. This is just the start of the day. But again, if we start early, they can start focusing on what they prefer and then really get down to doing some preparation. If anyone's interested in some suggestions for test preparation groups, we have one that is tried and true, and I've gotten great reviews from parents. They will do a class if we ask them to, but I often find one-on-one is better for our students, because I may be stronger in the science section, you may be stronger in the math. If we're going the hurdles all at the same time, it will not benefit it as much. But if I need a lot of help in the math, then sitting down with someone and saying, hey, you know how to do this, Corky, this is the formula, and reviewing is much easier. And these tutors are bright, and they come to Westover when your daughter is free. Okay, so you don't have to go to a class every Tuesday night. You can meet on a Saturday afternoon, and I love that because our kids are busy. They also will give us a discount in terms of the fee, the same discount you get for your tuition here. So that means if the kid has a 50% discount here in terms of tuition, they will give a 50% discount on the fee, not on the tutor's fee, but on the fee for the meeting. So it does cut the cost, and I do that because I had chosen them. That's one of the reasons why I chose them, because I think that tutoring should be available for everybody regardless of socioeconomic ability to pay. Any other questions? Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, and it relates to reporting their test scores to schools. I've heard different schools of thought on it. One is, you have a list of however many schools you're interested in, send them all your scores. The other is, don't send anything, wait until the end and then decide who you're going to send your scores to. Do you have a...
Right, so the question is, in terms of sending scores, there are different philosophies. Should you send them all? Should you wait and see and send only specific scores? I'm on the latter side of it because I don't want them to use anything to knock my kid out of the pool. What else to do is sit down with students in the fall, and I will say, this is your stronger score. Some schools will do something called super scoring, which means they'll take the highest critical reading in SAT, the highest math, and the highest writing, so the total will be higher than any one sitting.
They don't all super score.
They don't all super score, and fewer super score on the ACT, but because of the way it's broken down, you can actually send 2 sittings. Most kids are not that skewed on the ACT that it's going to be that different. And so what we'll do in October is sit down, and your daughter and I will sit down and say, okay, are we going to send scores? Are we not going to send scores? If we are going to send scores, what are your better scores? Here's the correlation between your scores. This is what I recommend. And then either I can help them send their scores. I can't do it for them because they have their own accounts. What I would do then is charge their smart card. I've got a school credit card. Don't tell Steve Ladd, but I think I maxed it out twice this year already. I can do the same with their application fees. I can use the school credit card to pay for their application fees and then charge the students smart cards. So that you all don't have to worry about if you're day student or board, or even if you're a day student parent, how often do you see your kids? I mean, you almost board here. So we can do that as well to help them through the process, especially because sending scores can be a little complicated at first for them to work through that process. Once they do it once, they pretty much know what to do. But I think we do that in the senior year when we've sort of figured out the game plan. Where she's applying, is she using test scores, is she not using test scores? And what combinations of scores we might send. Yeah.
On the GPA thing that we did, can't think of the words, today. I don't think you mentioned the ACT scores or the SAT scores at all. Do they have any bearing?
So ACT and SAT scores do influence admissions. In the game itself, they were all admissible. So we had to look at the finite things that were really going to sort of split hairs. And again, the reason why I talk about some of the specific ones, like from Idaho, is because we have no control over that, but we do have control over whether they do the optional essay. So it's important, I think, for our girls to feel empowered about what they can control and let go what they can't control so that they can feel good about the process. And that's one of the things we talk about a lot in college seminars is, what do you have control over? What do you don't? Unless you want to go through gender reassignment, right now, you're a girl. So, if you're applying to school that's 70% women, it's an uphill battle. But if you go to a school that's 70% male, woohoo, right? And especially if you're in STEM and you're going to school that's 70% male, that's a huge plus. There's probably going to be money coming your way. But I want them to understand the basics and the facts so that there isn't this guessing of why didn't I get in, or why do you think that this is a reach for me when it looks like from the stats online it's a good match for me? Well, guess what? It's 70% female. So while it's a good match for you, absolutely, it's going to be tougher to get in because they need, I wouldn't say stupider males, but I think when it's easier for males to get in, the bar gets lower a little bit. And then, of course, I get, well, I don't know which school with stupid boys, so I'm not even applying there, but then we work on that.
So what's the most important thing as a parent that I can do?
The most important thing you can do as a parent is have open discussions with your kids, specifically about the fact that you want her to be happy and you want her to find a good fit for her. Because I think a lot of times I can run into kids feeling that they haven't been good enough. And that's something they carry for life. That's not just something that they carry today. So as you're going through the process, if you find that you're struggling, call me, send me an email, right? I don't mind having conversations. Part of the difficulty is if you're constantly asking your daughter, she's going to give you one of these after a while, right? Because she wants to do it herself and she doesn't want to talk about it. But if you want to call me and have those conversations, go ahead, and I can keep steering you back. I can even feed you stuff that you can talk with her about so you can approach it from her angle as well. So you can see it through her eyes. But being supportive, if you can, take her to visit some schools so that she can start saying, wow, I thought I wanted big, but holy cow, that's big. Or I thought I wanted urban, but wow, that's urban. Help her find her way, get her to visit the schools so that she can start in her mind figuring out what feels comfortable for her. And usually they take the lead and they do an amazing job, because they're really bright and they're really smart kids, and, you know, our kids here are really good kids, and they really do listen when we talk. Even if they don't every time acknowledge that they're listening to you, they really are, most of the time. Because I actually hear it in my office. Guess what my dad said? Guess what? That's right. Right, so that's the way to go.
Could you talk a little bit about the AP classes that Westover offers versus the AP classes that you can take online?
In terms of whether they're valued more or less, so the question is, can we talk about AP classes that Westover offers versus AP classes that are offered
The
online?
online school for girls
Correct.
offers the AP classes.
Correct.
How do students at Westover succeed on the online AP versus success in classroom?
I'd have to probably do a little more research on that, because I wouldn't want to misspeak about whether, you know, how our kids do with the AP online courses. I know that the online piece is going to be a part of their future. There are more colleges that are using online courses. I have to say, however, that because our kids like interaction and they like conversation, that sometimes online courses are difficult to get used to, because you're not meeting with the teacher every day, because you have to discipline yourself to get your work done. Oh yeah, we have an online coordinator. Heather Nuzzo is our online coordinator. She tracks all the kids. She keeps in touch with the teachers if the kids aren't doing their homework or not keeping up. She works with them on that. So she is sort of the advocate on the ground here for the online school for girls. We have a lot of kids in particular who, if they've gone through BC calculus as juniors, have no more math here specifically, so they might go into multivariable calculus online. And I also have to say that the online school has really evolved since its founding, and I think that they have a lot more support. The kids will blog together. It's really interesting to listen to them talk. Well, I'm working on a project with a girl from California, so we have to pick blah blah time because she's out of school, but I'm not, you know, my internet's not shut off yet.
And do colleges care if you took AP online or in the classroom, or if the transcript just shows the AP class?
So our transcript shows two transcripts showing the APs. If you're a senior and you're in online school for girls, they don't even have an AP result yet. But if you're a junior and you're in online school for girls and you apply, you will have an AP testing result also to send along. If we do not put any other school's grades on our transcript. If your daughter was in a different school as a freshman and she comes here as a sophomore, we will send two transcripts.
I didn't realize the online school for girls was considered a different school.
It has its own accreditation now, yeah, which is another reason why it's valued, because it's accredited now. So it's an approved school, and you know, you have to go through a lot of hoops to become accredited. Yeah, sure.
First, I wanted to thank you for encouraging the girls, maybe even requiring them as sophomores to go to the college fair. You may get some eye rolls from them, but I think it's really good to get them started. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Even in the light of some opposition, maybe girls.
They don't give it to me. I'm sure they give it to their friends, but they're usually very polite with me.
I also wanted to ask, you talked about it earlier in terms of early decision and financial aid. If you could elaborate a little bit in terms of historically how you counsel kids in that decision. And you said that sometimes the schools will make the decision and then tell you what the package is. And I couldn't quite figure out whether you're stuck with that, or there is some negotiation, or that it's either take it or leave it and you're done.
So the question is about early decision and financial aid. And if you're given a package, are you just stuck with it, or are you done, or is there something else you can do? If you're applying early decision or regular decision and you receive a financial aid package, you can always appeal the package. The sticky situation that I've seen recently is that your parents make just enough that you don't qualify for aid, but they don't necessarily think that they can afford the full freight. So then you're not going to get a lot of aid from colleges because you're not demonstrating need, but you need that aid for college to get your kid there. And that's when I counsel kids not to apply early decision. There's something called a financial aid calculator. It's on collegeboard.com. You can use this year's tax returns, you can plug the numbers in, and you can see what the government expects you to pay. It's called the expected family contribution. If a college is $56,000 and your EFC is 20, then they're going to have to make up $36,000 in grants and loans to get your kid in the door. If you have $56,000, the federal government says you can afford it, whether you agree to it or not. Colleges then are not going to reach out to you with financial aid because on paper you can pay. Now, we've had kids whose parents are supporting a grandparent or several grandparents, perhaps parents in a different country. We have kids who have siblings with major disabilities that have high medical bills. You can appeal the financial aid award. That doesn't mean you're going to get more, but there's no harm in trying. The goal, however, is if kids do need a significant amount of financial aid, is for me to make sure that their list is broad and deep, because there are schools out there that may be a tier below where your daughter is trending right now, who will value her for her intelligence and her abilities, and they will reach out to her with chunks of money because she's sparkly to them. And that doesn't mean that they're any less rigorous or academically challenging. It just means that that's where they're floating in the pyramid of selectivity. As I said before, Case Western right now is reaching out to our very strong STEM kids with huge amounts of money, about 80 grand over 4 years, right? That's almost half your college tuition paid for because they want our strong girls to come to their school. So knowing that, and our kids are very generous, they tell me the scholarships they're getting. I then keep records of which schools have been generous, and I can steer kids towards the schools that have been reaching out to us financially. So even if you don't demonstrate need, you could apply to Case Western and not get any money. They still may give you 20 grand because they want you to come. And so that's what I need to know. What I tell kids is, you need to have the talk with your parents. Remember the talk? Right? We're all supposed to have that talk. This is Corky's talk. This is the financial aid talk, right? They need to sit down with you and say, Mom and Dad, college is expensive. How is this going to happen for us? What do I need to know before I start the process? So Corky can help me find the schools that I can attend, right? So it's a range of schools, hopefully, that will reach out to our kids financially, because let's face it, it's expensive, and it's a big deal, right? It's a big ticket, and you may have the first one here now, but you got 3 more behind. And guess what? They all need to go too, right? So we need to think about those things. And the other thing that I think is important to consider, which I think is a misnomer these days, is if you need financial aid, let's say that your expected family contribution is $20,000, and you apply to UConn, which is now what, 32, 33 in state? The difference between the 20 and the 32, there is going to be no merit money there. State schools rarely have merit money to throw around. That's going to be lost. It's almost better in that situation to look at private colleges, which may give you some merit money and some loans, rather than a state institution that does not have the funding to fill that gap. Now, if your expected family contribution is 60 grand, and UConn is 32, it is one hell of a deal, right? So it all depends on where you are financially, what your expected family contribution is, and then what the colleges are looking for. And that's why it's good for the kids to have the talk, so that I can help you find the schools that are the best match for you in your fiscal plan, right? We have some parents who are close to retirement. They need to keep adding to their retirement. We have some younger families that have more time to earn. All of that has to be factored in when you're looking at paying for college. Are we all just absolutely exhausted? Thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you for everyone for holding the cards. And hopefully we'll see you again next year. Thank you.
Take care now.
You too.
Be warm.
Thanks for coming.